Civil air transport is one of the truly significant industries of the 20th century. It is a subject to rapid change and technological innovation. It is an international industry subjected to domestic and international politics because of its importance to defense, trades, and diplomacy and national development. Such an industry demands of government, management, and labor an exceptional degree of adaptability to meet the changing needs of the consumer. Consumers are not just traveling public, but all those persons and communities whose life and welfare are influenced by air transport.
Demand for air travel from international passengers to Malaysia is one very important information for transport professionals to plan for the facilities and equipments at airports. However, due to its complexities, getting such information will eventually require surveys to be carried out.
Technology, economic growth, and lower air transport costs has been responsible for the phenomenal growth of international air transport movement to Malaysia. The rapid growth of air transportation in Asia-Pacific region has attracted considerable attention of researchers and academics. Increasing number of flights and volume of traffic make the demand analysis play an important role in determining an adequacy of runway and passenger terminal capacity. Various studies has emerged to explain some factors that influence the air travel demand and airport capacity. The growing discrepancy between the needs of the traveling public and the travel service offered by the scheduled airline has led to the emergence of variety classes of air carrier. In return for assuming this public service obligation, scheduled airlines are assured of a certain measure of protection to guard against uncontrolled price competition and overcapacity. This distinction was made in Article 5 and 6 of the Chicago Convention signed in 1944. As it is related to the technical and commercial freedom afforded to the service without defining them. It has analyzed the economic impact of deregulation of airport capacity expansion in the Malaysia domestic aviation market. Deregulation and airport capacity expansion play a significant role in realizing full benefit of aviation market growth. In line of the deregulation policy, airport capacity expansion was accelerated to meet this growth demand.
Second hypothesis, if one makes the assumption that most business travelers, as well as those persons traveling on urgent personal business, require the availability of premium or scheduled service throughout the year, these passengers are sensitive on time and convenience, while the remaining two-thirds traveling on vacation to see friends or relatives are more sensitive to price. The personal travel market is prepared to accept a reasonable amount of inconvenience, such as prior booking requirements and use of an outing airport in return for lower cost transport. The low fares have been the main stimulus for growth in leisure travel, with passengers being prepared to switch destination for good deals. Overall, passengers have become more empowered due to transparency in price and service information, and it appears that passengers are becoming more value conscious, demanding choice and flexibility. However, they are prepared to give up frills, choice, or flexibility in return for low prices. This is certainly very evident on short-haul routes.
Hypothesis 3. Air transport improves quality of life by broadening people's leisure and cultural experiences. It provides a wide choice of holiday destinations around the world and an affordable means to visit distant friends and relatives. The industry played a decisive role in the work and leisure of millions of people. It promotes and improves quality of life and helps to improve living standards by facilitating tourism. Air transport also helps generate economic growth and alleviate poverty by providing employment opportunities. The trend in leisure passengers indicates that they expect and continue to expect low fares. The low fares have been the main stimulus for growth in leisure travel, with passengers being prepared to switch destination for good deals. Overall, passengers have become more empowered.
Hypothesis 4. There are many kinds of service including FFP, the frequently flyers program, non-stop flight, and low price fare. Business passengers generally prefer the more frequent flights and the shorter line hold time, while the sightseeing passenger also consider the level of fare. Some passengers prefer flights using their country's flag carriers. Passengers have different of preference of air transportation service. There are two types of questionnaire were provided. One is a long distance flight and another is relatively short distance flight. It because it was thought that the passengers' preference for services will be changed by flight length. In general, the demand for air passenger can be affected by two factors. There are external and internal factors. Some internal factors that affect the air passenger demand are airfare impact and level of service impact, while the external factors will consider economic conditions such as gross domestic product, GDP, and demographic factors, for example, the population. Air transportation demand tends to evolve as a function of price changes and economic conditions. There are several factors that affect the air travel demand. Those are basically macroeconomic and demographic factors. The population. Airfare represents the fare for transportation on a commercial airplane. The airfare impact on air passenger demand is determined by utilizing the concept of price elasticity of demand. The price elasticity of demand is defined as the percentage change in demand as the impact of 1% change in average airfare.
The contrast between Kuala Lumpur KLIA and Singapore Changi airports needs to be set in the context of uncertain traffic growth in Asia Pacific just now, and also the rival low-cost terminals that were opened in 2006. Kuala Lumpur was subsequently replaced by a much bigger and very expensive KLIA2, while Changi abandoned its LCT in favour of building two more full-service ones. The passengers numbers chart from 2014 to date shows a very similar pattern from March until June, after which KLIA traffic falls away badly, partly as an adverse reaction to losses suffered by Malaysia Airlines, as well as to reductions in capacity growth by its main operators. The growth chart for the same period demonstrates how the two airports have experienced declining growth that has slipped into negative territory at both of them in the last 3 months. However, the steepest falls were in the early part of the year when aviation growth generally across the region was slowed by problems in the Chinese economy and a consequent reduction in Chinese tourism, domestic strife in Thailand, and other reasons.
We gain hypothesis number 6 by studying the book by Art Balcom titled F the Demand for Public Transport, a Public Guide, which are published on 2004. Some insight may provide by a range of theoretical modes covering bus and rail service competition. These models take several factors into account, including service levels provided by competing operators, quality of service, and fare level. rising car and driving license ownership, income growth, and the declining real cost of car ownership have been identified as the key factors that have shaped personal travel patterns in the last 20 years. Because of this relationship, considerable care must be taken when interpreting public transport demand elasticity that has been estimated with respect to income and car ownership. Income elasticity estimated using demands models that do not have car ownership amounts, their explanatory variable will pick up the negative edict that the ownership has on public transport. The relationship between land use and transport are complex, as each is directly dependent on the others.
The conclusion: as demand for air travel is difficult to forecast, it is important to utilize system dynamic based on consideration that forecast came from the calibrated system of surveying models that are likely to be better and more informative than other approaches to develop more robust sensitivities in order to lead a better decision. It is important to forecast air travel demand in order to support long-term applying to meet the future demand using the planning horizon. We assume that demand for air travel will grow as the general economic trend were positive for the air transport industry. Rapid growth in the general air travel demand will force the airport authority to expand the runway and passenger facilities, for example baggage claim, floor space, check-in, holding and generic area.